G'day. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I think you can just leave
Yeah?
it on the table.
Okay. Problem is I'm a stand-up comedian. I can't bend over and do it, and I can't sit down and do it either. It's strict rules for these things. Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Gareth, professionally known as Gareth O'Comedy. I am a stand-up comedian. I also worked at MuleSoft and Salesforce for the better part of half a decade. I'm not sure in which job I did more jokes. Only one of which I was a professional in. I have no MuleSoft certification, so I was clearly only a professional stand-up comedian the whole time. Just a quick joke to get things started. What do you call the MuleSoft development work by someone who doesn't have any MuleSoft certifications? That ruins my punchline. No, the answer was half-assed, but anyway, yeah. So, as you know, MuleSoft was on the third day of Dreamforce. That's because they always save the best for last. I really enjoyed my time at MuleSoft, worked with many of the partners here today and many of the folks online. And yeah, it was a pleasure to come back and help Eduardo and Jose get things started here. Eduardo, as many of you may know, is a MuleSoft ambassador, a highly esteemed position in the MuleSoft community of certified people. And good. I'm just getting some feedback here. Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. He's just saying good. Okay. Excellent. He's also a mentor. Jose is also Eduardo's mentee, and I am a mentos. So you've got the triple threat here today. I'm very excited. You know, I'm obviously doing some jokes. Eduardo's from Brazil. He's going to do his talk and demo in Portuguese, and Jose's going to do his in Java. Thank you very much. If you haven't got a beer yet at home, please run to the fridge or your neighbour's fridge and grab one. We've got some refreshments and some prizes here for the group that are here in person as well. So without further ado, I would like to invite Eduardo and Jose over to get things started.
Just a little bit more on what Gareth was. I'll leave this here. On what Gareth was saying. For some of you who don't know me, maybe some of the people online, some of you guys in here obviously already know me for prior presentations and doing some work with some of you guys. Well, for instance, so I've been doing this thing for 20 years in software development as a whole. I'm always doing these presentations. I'm really actively working with MuleSoft community. As Gareth mentioned before, I'm a MuleSoft ambassador since 21. It's been a long time now, and I'm actually mentoring my good friend José here, who's actually a mentor. Well, and the most important things, well, I'm a dad of two handsome boys. I'm definitely looking forward to becoming, some of you may laugh, but I'm looking forward to becoming a landscaper in actually just 2 months from now. Yeah. In a swimming pool builder as well. So, and also I would like to introduce our good friend José here, who's actually talking to us about MCPs and what's the role of MCP and how MuleSoft addresses some of these concerns via the connectors, etc. Up to you, mate.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Thank you, everyone who is joining online as well. So my name is José Clua. I am a MuleSoft mentor and an integration architect. And I've been working with MuleSoft since 2018 and with IT in general since early 2000s. So I've been around for some time. I like soccer and classic rock as well. And yeah, let's get started. Let's go to what really matters, which is the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, right? So MCP, this protocol is to enable AI agents to access systems or data. And AI agents, they are a really big thing nowadays, right? So this is why this is really important, because this will empower the AI agents to do so many things, right? So who knows, maybe some years from now, they will take our jobs, and maybe they will take over the world. I don't know. But yeah, this is not only important, but it's also very interesting and fun to work with. So I hope you enjoy it. So before we dive into MCP, let's go back a little bit in the AI evolution, and let's think a little bit about the generative AI. Right. So with generative AI, we have an LLM, right? And the LLM will receive a prompt. The prompt will be broken into tokens, and this huge, large language model will use these big algorithms to use, prediction to try to guess what are the next tokens. And with that, it will generate an output that can be text, image, video, all sorts of things, right? But the key word here is generate, right? So we cannot ask an LLM to do things for us, right? We cannot ask an LLM to book a hotel for us, right? Because that's not their purpose. They are not meant for doing things. They are meant for creating things for us, right? So if we want the AI to do things for us, then we need to move to the next step in the evolution, which is the agentic AI, right? So with agentic AI, we have AI agents, and they will use the LLM, right? So the LLM is the brain of the AI agent, right? And obviously, there are many more things into the AI agent. This is very simplified representation here, but I would like to focus on this blue box here, the tools, right? So as I mentioned before, and as all of you already know, the AI agents, they are all about doing things, right? Performing actions, right? So the LLM is the brain of the AI agent, and the tools are like the arms or the hands of the AI agents, right? So when the AI agents, usually they are specialists about something, and they receive a prompt or a goal, right? So they have like a mission they have to accomplish. So what they do is they get this goal and they break it into smaller tasks, right? And they create an execution plan, right? So they will execute all the tasks, but they will only be able to do that if they have the correct tools, right? So with the correct tools, they will be able to execute the actions, right? So they can connect to external systems using APIs or running a script, and then they will get the results, right? And then the AI agent will get the results. It will move to another task. For example, you can ask the AI agent to book a hotel for you, right? And with the hotel reservation, then the AI agent can send an email, or it can create an event in a calendar, all those sort of things, right? So the tools enable the agents to execute actions. And similarly, they also have resources. So resources are like a library, right? They have access to information. So the tools are about doing things, and the resources are about knowing about things, getting information, right? Now, let's think a little bit about these tools and resources here. I know that many of you are developers or architects, and we've all created many API implementations using MuleSoft. And we know that this is not necessarily very simple thing to do, right? Some tools can be quite complex, right? Depending on the type of tools, you can spend even weeks or months creating some tools, right? And some agents, they might need many tools, right? Think about a hotel booking agent, AI agent, that needs to book a hotel in all the major, hotel chains in Australia. Let's say there are 100 hotel chains or hotel APIs. Then the agent will need to have 100 tools or 100 set of resources, right? And that can be quite a lot of work to do, right? And also, different agents can need the same tools, right? So you can have like the same implementation done over and over in multiple agents that are basically reinventing the wheel and doing the same thing. So here's where MCP comes into the picture. So with MCP, the AI agents, they become a MCP host, right? And the MCP host or the AI agent, it doesn't need, they don't need to implement any tools or resources, right? All they have to do is to implement this protocol, right? This is just an interface, the MCP client interface. And as long as this AI agent has this interface, then it can connect to any MCP server, right? And in the MCP server is where the tools and resources implementation is, right? So in essence, MCP, the MCP framework, what it is the decoupling of the tools and resources from the agents into a new layer, right? So from an architecture perspective, this gives us a lot of benefits, right? You can scale much easily with this architecture. You can have reusability, right? You create one MCP server and you can have multiple agents using the same MCP server, right? If you update the tool, all the AI agents will be updated immediately. And it is also much easier to work like that because the agents, they focus on the AI agent things. They don't have to focus on the tools and resources implementation, so they become more lightweight, right? So this is what the MCP framework actually does. And we also have the prompts. So these are what we call the primitives of the MCP server, right? We have tools, resources, we already talked about that. And we also have prompts. So prompts are predefined prompts, natural language instructions that explain to the AI agent how to use the tools and how to use the resources, right? And it also enables some workflows between the client and the server, right? We are going to see some of these possible workflows in a bit. So MCP, it's an open source standard for connecting AI applications to external systems. These are some of the benefits. We already touched on some of these: scalability, reusability, collaboration, modularity, right? So these are some benefits we get from using MCP. This is the overview of the architecture of the MCP framework. So when we have an AI application, such as an AI agent or agent force agent, for example, that implements the MCP protocol or the MCP standard, then the AI application becomes the MCP host. And within a host, we can have multiple MCP clients. And each client will have a one-to-one connection with an MCP server, right? So usually we will have a very specific purpose for an MCP server. For example, we can have an MCP server to connect to CRM, an MCP server to connect to a file system or a database, and then the host can create multiple instances of an MCP client interface, and each one of them will connect to the MCP server. These are just some details about the protocol. So the transport layer, it supports these protocols, the standard I/O for local connection. So you can have a client and a server in the same environment. Then you would use STDIO, or streamable HTTP, or SSE, server-side events, for remote connections. And the data layer, so this is how the data is sent back and forth from client to server. It's using this JSON RPC protocol. So I mentioned that the MCP framework also enables some workflows. So this is very interesting because this is like the next level of using APIs, right? So think about the API to book a hotel, for example, right? So let's say we have a post method, and in this API, we need to send some required fields, like the check-in date, the checkout date, number of beds, and so on. Right? So these are required fields. If we don't send those fields to the API, then we will just get a 400 error, a bad request. So the API will just fail, right? But when we add the AI into the picture, things become much more interesting. So here we can have this elicitation flow. So this basically means that the MCP client will interact with the user, right? And the user might say something like, I need to do a reservation at this hotel, XYZ. And then the MCP client will ask the MCP server what is necessary. So what are the necessary fields? The check-in date, checkout date, number of beds, right? So the MCP server will inform this to the client. It might even do it before the interaction. So it's not necessarily in this order of the flow, but the thing is that the server at some point, it will inform the client that to do this action of booking a hotel, it will need all of this, all of this data. So the AI agent, then it will interact with the user as many times as needed until it gets everything he needs.
Will the MCP server talk to the MCP client in plain English, or is there any specific protocol, actually method that it uses?
Yeah, so this is done using the prompt. So the prompts are loaded from the MCP server, right? But behind the scenes, what it's really doing, making this happen, is the LLM. So the LLM is in the MCP host. Yeah. So the LLM is the brain of everything. The LLM is doing the orchestration of everything. So it will load the capabilities of the MCP server, and then it will know that it needs these things, right? So the LLM will orchestrate everything. So the MCP server is just a protocol. The MCP client is just a protocol. The actual process, the orchestration of the process is done by the LLM, right? So here, if he informs, oh, okay, the check-in date is 1st of November, and I need just one bed, then the AI agent knows that there's something missing. He forgot the checkout date. And then he will say, oh, please also let me know the checkout date. So it will interact as many times as needed with the user until it gets everything. And only when it gets everything, it's only then it will hit the API. So at that point, it has everything it needs, right? So this is like the next level usage of REST APIs, right? Because we don't need to worry about validating the AI will do all this work for us. Right? This is another interesting flow.
Sorry, José. So in that example back there, so you're saying that the host or the LLM is handling that conversation, gathering all the data. So in that instance, the MCP server is aware of the schema that needs to go to the API before it tries to send it? Okay.
Exactly. So in the MCP server, one of the things that we need is exactly what you said, the schema. So we need to add the description of all the tools and all the resources, and also the schema. So it will know what are the required fields.
So it holds all the capabilities.
It holds everything. But then the MCP host is the one that will actually look into the things that are missing and interact with the user. Right. And this is a similar flow. But in this case, the sampling flow is when the user asks something like, oh, I need to buy a flight ticket from Brisbane to Tokyo. What are the best options? So here, the MCP or the AI agent, he knows that, okay, I need to look for all the possible options, right? So it has to look at all the possibilities of flights, right? And then it will connect to the MCP server and say, okay, how many APIs do you have? How many airline companies do you have that you can give me some options, right? And we might, I mean, here the elicitation flow happens also in parallel. So the AI agent might ask, okay, what are the dates you're looking for? Are you flexible on the dates? Can we look into more dates? And then if it says yes, well, then we can look into a time frame, right? And then it might get 4 options, 10 options, right? Based on the best price, the best, so the closer to the desired date to the user, right? So then it will present all of these options to the user, and it will ask the user which option he wants, right? And here it will make sure that the user agrees, right? So it will ask something like, are you sure you want option 3? And only when the user confirms that he wants the option 3, he's sure about that, only then it will hit the API, right? So these kind of flows are also supported by the MCP protocol, right? So this makes the system much more intelligent than just using an API, right? And this is out of the box. We don't need to program this kind of things. The MCP client, in this case, it has these features of these flows, right? So now let's talk a little bit about MuleSoft.
Sorry, one question. Is it only one way, or is there a tendency that it's like a request response, wherein the response will be processed as going back as well?
So you mean when we get the response?
Yes.
Yeah. So if we get the response from the client saying, oh, something, we got an error, it will also go back to the user and say, sorry, there was a problem. We could not buy this flight. Do you want to book another one instead? I don't know if that is what you were asking.
I mean, from the API, it says sending back the response.
So so in the MCP server,
Or it's just only one way, only where you send a request.
okay.
Let the API process everything.
Yeah, so I think when Eduardo shows the demo, it will be more clear. But in the MCP server implementation, you actually call the API, right? And then you can leverage your existing APIs, and all the business logic will be in your APIs. But once you get the response, you will get the response in the MCP server. And I think if you have the correct prompts on the MCP server, you can also do something with the response. So, for example, if you get an error from the API, then you need to ask the user what is his second best option. So you can everything needs to be in the description. So the description is the prompt or the instructions to the LLM.
Sorry, I've got one question on the
Sure.
previous diagram. So we have the MCP client. So where does the LLM sits in? Is it between the user and the MCP client? So the LLM talks to the MCP client and then goes all the way to the API.
So the AI agent talks to the user, right?
Yeah.
The MCP client, it's just a protocol. It's just an interface. The MCP server has the protocol of doing these flows. It has all the instructions.
So the user communicates to the LLM.
Yeah.
And then the LLM talks to MCP client. Is that
Yeah.
the right way to say?
Yeah, the LLM will use the MCP client as a protocol to connect to the MCP server, right? So yeah, it will. So the MCP client, it has a structure, right? And the LLM will know this structure and say, okay, to do this, I need to create this payload, and I need to send this payload to the MCP client, and the MCP client will send it to the MCP server, right? So there's no conversation or interaction between the LLM and the MCP client. The MCP client is just a set of standards, just protocol, like a RAML API kind of. So it's like the MCP client knows that to do the sampling flow, it needs to create a specific payload, right? So we will use the sampling flow, right? So I need to create this payload, and it will use the intelligence of the LLM to create the payload. But the MCP client by itself, it doesn't communicate back and forth with the LLM. It's just the LLM reading the specification and knowing that it needs to create that structure.
So it's just a configuration part that MCP client holds, and then the LLM communicates to the CV server via the configuration. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
so is it right to say that MCP client is something logical, but it does not it does not have its own physical existence kind of thing, or like this is more of a logical, but LLM is the piece that is doing everything for MCP client.
Yeah, it creates actually an instance. So an instance that has this transport layer and data layer. So it's like a process that is running, and it creates this client. It creates a client. So the client connects to the server, right? We will see now in the MCP support from MuleSoft. I think it's gonna also make things a little bit more clear. So in MuleSoft now we have this connector MCP, right, with all these functions. These functions, they come in two flavors: MCP client and MCP server, right? So the MCP client functions, they enable you to create an AI agent with MuleSoft. So obviously there are some things that the MCP will not do, like you need to create some kind of memory. So the AI agents, they need to be stateful. They need to remember what are the tasks that the AI agents trying to solve. What is the status of each task, right? So it needs to save everything in memory. So if you're creating an AI agent from scratch, then you have to implement some of these things. There are other things here that are not in this diagram here, but as far as the tools and resources are concerned, the MCP connector has you covered because it will have all the MCP client implementation here. You just have to use these functions here. So you can list the tools. What are the tools available on a client? What are the resources? I want to execute one tool. I want to read the resource, right? So it has all of these. So you can actually create a MuleSoft application. So in that case, the MuleSoft application will become your MCP host, and it will have this MCP client interface. by using the MCP connector. And we also have the MCP server functions. So with these functions, you can easily create an MCP server with MuleSoft. And this is really interesting because it's actually pretty simple, straightforward to create an MCP server that will use your existing APIs. So let's say in your organization, you have multiple APIs, experience APIs, process APIs, systems APIs that are already working. So you don't need to touch those APIs. You don't need to do anything with the APIs. You just need to create one application that will be your MCP server. And in your MCP server, you will use these functions here, the resource listener, the tools listener. So the tools listener is similar to, for example, an HTTP listener or a VMQ listener. So whenever the LLM or the AI agent decides, I want to use this tool, the tool XYZ, then this tool, it will have a tool listener and it will get a message. And it will know, oh, the agent wants to use me, so I will start my process. And
how does that list of tools get built? Do you have to add that in as an instruction of like, these are the tools available, this is what they do? Or if you're building the server and then connecting it to a resource, it connects through and pulls that in? Like how does that tool list get built out?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So you don't need to create this list in the MCP client. The client will connect to the server. And once
if you're building your own MCP server,
even if you're building your own, when you build the client, you don't need to know about the tools. Okay. You will not know what tools will be there. Yeah. It eventually will connect to a server and it will get some tools. But at that point in time, it could be any tool. It could be any tool. And then once it establishes a connection with a server, then it will call this list tools, and then it will get all the capabilities of this MCP server with the descriptions, and the descriptions have all the instructions on how to use the tools, the resources, so it will know what to do.
So is that like that's part of the MCP protocol for it to have that listed out kind of thing? Like if you're building your own MCP server, sorry.
No, I'll let you complete and then I'll probably get something new. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, no, I'm just because if you're building your own, like you're in studio, you're creating an MCP server to create a connection to a resource that you have. I'm just not clear on like that list of tools. Like, do you have to flesh that out, or does that?
Yeah. The way that it works is when you implement your MCP server, when the client establishes the connection to the server, it's automatically going to go, okay, now you give me the list of tools, resources, and prompts that you have available. When I run the demo next in a couple of minutes, you're going to see this thing going. So that's how it works. So we establish the connection first, and then go, okay, give me all of the stuff that you have. And for instance, tools, resources, etc., they would have specific descriptions that allow the LLM to go, well, given this context and this prompt, I can actually call that tool because this is what's going to give me what I need. Or I can actually query that resource. That's going to give me what I need for the context that I'm executing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool. Sorry.
Thank you. And yeah, we also have this function here on new session listener. So this can be also used to do some initialization on when the client, the first time the client connects to the server, when it creates a new session. Here you can do like the authentication part, and you can also preload some information from the APIs into this new session. You can also do this kind of things with this on new session listener. Usually it's used for authentication, right? And these are some just features about security. I will not go through all of this, but the security is very important, right? Because if the MCP server, it gives you access to many APIs, tools, and resources, right? It has to really have a strong security, right? So we don't expose all of these things, right? So security, it's very important for MCP, for the MCP concept. And here, so this is our old API-led connectivity that we all know, right? But now we live in the AI era, right? So maybe we can start thinking not just in API-led, but also in AI-led connectivity, right? So as I was saying before, if you have all of these APIs in your organization, right? Usually the APIs are consumed by some applications, right? And the applications, they are deterministic, right? For example, imagine you have a website that connects to an experience API. There's going to be a front-end developer that will create like a text box and a button, and it will program. If the user enters a text here and clicks this button, then I'm going to call this API using this endpoint, sending these parameters, right? But with MCP, now, sorry, not with MCP, but with AI, now we have a different kind of experience, right? The agentic AI experience, right? And here, we don't just call a specific API when something happens, right? The LLM, it's very intelligent. It will know which API it needs to connect, right? So you can either create all these tools or these connections inside your agent, so they know how to use the tools, or you can use an MCP and create this layer here, right? You create this layer, and then the tools that will be here in the MCP server, and the agent doesn't need to know about how to implement the tools. So this is a really nice architecture. And as I was saying, if you have all of these APIs, you just need one more application here, the MCP server, and you can turn all this application network, you can make it MCP enabled, and therefore you can use AIs to interact with your APIs. It's pretty amazing, actually. I really like doing this. MCP, I think it's...
So quick question on this one. So we have APIs, a lot of APIs on this screen, right? So what is the recommended approach of creating an MCP connector? Should it be on system API or process API or experience API?
So the MCP connector, it's a new layer. In the Salesforce documentation, it's called the action layer. Right? It's sorry, not necessarily it will connect to experience layer. It can connect to a process layer. The bottom line here is that the AI will connect to an API, and it will decide that during runtime. Right? It's not deterministic. The API will decide which API it needs to use. Right? Can I have some water, please? My throat.
Bring you a beer with water.
My throat kind of very old, not very dry. Sorry.
You want the beer as well?
In a minute. Yeah, so I don't know if that answered your question, but it's a new layer, the action layer. And the MCP will connect to any API as long as the API is one of the resources or one of the tools that
So
are...
you're saying that action layer is another set of layer which have a list of APIs.
Exactly.
So that contains the MCP servers or MCP client connectors that can connect to the experience layer or process layer.
Exactly.
So is it going to be a separate set of API to be need to develop on the action layer?
So the action layer will have only the MCP server.
Yeah.
The MCP client will be in the AI application or in the agent, right? The MCP client will be here, right? Or here, the MCP client. And here you will have the MCP server. But the MCP server, it doesn't have the API implementation, right? It's just a layer on top of your APIs, right? And then it will use the APIs. Let me.
So the server runs along with the API.
Sorry. Yeah, the server runs on a different application, right? So it's basically like if you create a new API.
Yeah.
It's an API, but it's a very special kind of API that's an MCP server, right? And that will expose your APIs, right? So the MCP standard was created by this company Anthropic. This was released last year, 2024, right? And it's already being adopted by some of these companies. You might know some of them. So it is being rapidly adopted by the major technology players in the market. And if you think about it, OpenAI, it's embracing this standard, even though it is a competitor of Anthropic, right? They are rivals. But why are they using the same standard? Because we really need a standard. If each company used a different standard, then it's not a standard, right? So MCP is becoming kind of it's emerging as the MCP is emerging as the de facto standard for connecting AI agents to systems, right, or to APIs, right? And you can even search online, and you will find things like this. You can here. This website has 16,000 MCP servers that you can just connect to and start using the tools. So here are some examples of MCP servers. You just need to connect your AI client or your AI host to this MCP server, and then you can start using the actions right away. Right. So that reminds me of that movie, The Matrix, when Neo asks Trinity, "Do you know how to fly a helicopter?" And then she says, "Not yet." And then she just downloads something, and then she says, "Oh, okay, now I know." It's kind of the same thing, because the agent doesn't know something, but then it connects to the MCP server, and then suddenly it knows how to do something, right? So that's the idea of MCP. And now Eduardo will show you a demo. I don't know if you have questions now about the slides, or maybe we can also do the questions in the end, whatever.
The idea here now is for us to sort of put in practice some of the right? Oh, thanks. Yeah. Good, thanks. Yeah, just to demonstrate all of this capability around agentic AI on MuleSoft, and more specifically around MCP. And apologies, I'm just sitting just because I'll have to use the laptop. So pretty much the idea is this, right? It was inspired by a somewhat recent experience that I had with requiring roadside assistance. You know, when you actually need roadside assistance, you call this 0800 number, and you keep hearing that very annoying music for I don't know how many minutes, and then they keep saying, "Oh, your call is very important to us," and it's actually not. They don't want you that. But that's okay. To them, just a few minutes after, you tell them what the problem actually is, and they go, "Well, I can send you someone. It's going to take anything between 30 minutes and 2 hours." Well, and then I was like, "Well, do I actually need to speak to someone like that? And why is it taking that long?" In parallel to that, I saw another interesting stuff when actually 2 or 3 different roadside workers actually came to help with the same. I was like, "Oh, there might be a better way of doing that." And actually, I had this idea. Well, you know what? I'm gonna take this opportunity to implement an actual MCP server, or in a set of functionality to implement a roadside AI agent. Yeah. So this is how it works. I'm not blocking this. So what I envisioned, of course, I didn't have enough time to develop the whole thing, but the idea would be this, right? Instead of you calling someone, what if you had an actual mobile app that you could just go, well, this is the problem that I'm actually facing. I don't need to talk to someone. I'll just go to my mobile app, talk to an agent, to an AI agent, just using natural language, right? And in the end of the day, improve my experience, because as you guys can see here in the end, what it could do is like, well, okay, I actually managed to find whoever is the roadside worker that's closest to you. So I'm not telling you just a random time that it's going to take for this guy to arrive. It's actually more precise, right? So for instance, well, this guy comes to you in approximately 15 minutes. Oh, sorry, 70. Yeah. And all of that, of course, enabled by a conjunction of an MCP server, and in this particular demo, a set of MuleSoft APIs. So then I put together this diagram that demonstrates how this thing would work. I choose Claude as my AI agent because of its MCP client capabilities as well, which at some stage you guys are gonna see it's not complete yet, not the full feature of capabilities that the protocol actually enables. It's not all in there. As I mentioned, MCP is quite recent, still developing, still get there. But the idea is this, right? So you have an MCP server that actually interfaces with all of your or all of our APIs in here, similar to the concept of AI-led connectivity that José was saying. So then I'm using, in this case, for the demo again, Salesforce. I have created an assistance mobile app. You guys are gonna laugh of me in my attempt to create something that resembles some sort of UI. Again, just to demonstrate the context. Imagine like a mailing platform where, imagine when I finish, which happened to me, when I finished receiving the assistance that I needed, I received an email going, hey, how did we go? Was it good? Was it not good? Etc. So can you provide us some feedback so we can actually improve? And the key thing to this thing, of course, is actually leveraging Google Directions API, so then we can improve that experience of going, well, it's not this random time. I'm actually giving you the time that it's going to take. It's going to be good for you and for the roadside worker as well. And then another thing, I think that José somewhat mentioned about this thing, but just reinforcing, I just used Claude for this demo just because it's readily available. I didn't have to write any code, but it doesn't mean that it's the only type of MCP client available, really. I could pretty much have implemented a MuleSoft application. That was, in fact, my intention. I wanted to have support for voice and everything to make this even more, kind of a wow thingy. And as well, it could be Agentforce and pretty much any client, really. Now, how this thing would go, like this. So one starts going, well, okay, I need some roadside assistance. The server is going to go, yeah, cool, I can definitely help you with that. Can you just to start the conversation, and it flows naturally, exactly as if I were talking to a person. Can you give me your license plate? Yeah, sure. Provides the license plate. It goes all the way to Salesforce, grabs my data, identifies me. I'm sort of a simple guy, right? So I drive a yellow Lamborghini Diablo, right? So yeah, good one. And then he goes, cool, okay, I found you there. So now can you tell me where actually you are? And then I'll go, cool, okay. Another thing that I actually like as a Brazilian, I love barbecue. So therefore I was at, barbecue street. Then it goes, cool, okay. Call the Google API, I found you. Now to dispatch someone, can you actually describe what the problem is with the vehicle? Once again, based on the experience that I had, it could have been something as simple as just a small car coming to help me, replacing the tire, not exactly a full-blown tow truck, because well, I don't need. So that would enable that fictitious company to actually go, well, given the problem that this guy is facing, I actually can send the small car, or I actually need the tow truck. Then I'll go, yeah, okay, the problem in my particular case is that the battery is dead, I just need a jump start. So this thing goes once again to Salesforce, and find out, okay, which of our roadside workers is actually closest to him. Okay, fine. Anyway, so back to where we were. So I will tell them, yeah, okay, I just need a jump start because my battery is dead. Then this thing is going to go and identify, for example, yeah, José Luis is the closest technician to where you are, and it's actually going to take 13 minutes. Once again, not anything between, I don't know, half an hour and 2 hours, etc. What I haven't quite depicted in this diagram and in the animation, etc., is what's happening in, say, in between the mobile app and the communication with Salesforce, meaning as the guy starts driving, of course, his current GPS position is sent to the server. So that's the way that we would do to know, yeah, this is the person that's closest to it. Right. So in here, I didn't show just because this is not quite related to MCP, but that would be happening as well. And that's how the application would, identify this thing. Cool. All right. Spoke a lot, shown a lot of PowerPoints. Let's see this thing in practice now. So what I'll do is I'll switch to Neil's actually working. I'll just start my Clua. Guys, if anyone has any questions, anything you would like to ask, please do.
Question from online, Eduardo. It's around the layers that was mentioned previously, where we have the traditional experience process system layer, but tonight we've been introduced to the action layer. So there's been a couple of questions around: is this an actual new layer that's coming in from MuleSoft? Do we treat it the same as we would an experience layer, but it's just more agentic focused? It's just got a curiosity around where this action layer is coming from.
That's a good question. The way that I particularly see it, for me, it's just an additional experience or an additional component to the experience layer.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Because look, if you really think of, okay, it's different because it's MCP, it's a new protocol, etc. But in fact, the way that it's going to behave is exactly the same as APIs. Again, the security is still the same. What happens is when on the communication between the client and the server, it just happens to be a different protocol and perhaps using a different standard. This time we're not using RAML anymore, or we're not using SOAP or whatever it is. But in fact, what we're doing is also providing an experience as means of taking some actions on my system or retrieving resources, etc. So the way that I see it is just an additional experience layer. So I don't think that the messaging coming out of MuleSoft doesn't exactly say, "Oh, we're adding a new layer." So yeah. So again, that's my view.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
First rule of MuleSoft's three-layer API architecture is don't talk about the fourth layer of API architecture.
That's very true. It's very possible. Very possible. Righty. Okay. Before I actually show, just Lachlan had a question before. So remember when we spoke about, well, how do we do to sort of to surface the tools and resources, etc., etc. And remember I mentioned when the API client establishes the connection to the server, it goes, okay, give me all of the stuff that you need. So from here we can actually see some of that stuff. Come on. Okay, there we go. So in my case here, I just named it just Mule server. Yeah. Right. So it pretty much went, well, established the connection to the server. Then it went, okay, give me the list of tools, give me the list of resources, and they get displayed in here in this client.
Yeah. So just to get the whole image in my head. So Claude is your host.
Correct.
Your client is your little add-in that you're adding here, and you're directing the client to your local.
To my server. Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Gotcha.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So there we go. Let's suppose, well, okay, don't want to, I don't know, I just had a problem with flat tire, whatever would be the case. So I would go, hi, I need site assistance, please. Then with all going well, it's going to actually go to my server, similar to what I have shown in the PowerPoint. Then the strange Gustavo, yeah. Well, my son was like, Dad, really? This guy, how does it know? Well, it just does because it's very smart. It's new, right? Cool. So it goes, yeah, okay, I'm here to help you. Can you start by providing me what's the license plate of your vehicle? So I would go, yeah, sure, something like that. It's so I loaded some of that data, of course, before in Salesforce, which I'll show you guys later. So imagine like the 456, perhaps. Then again, it knows, well, I know the context, I know what this guy has provided me, I know he's giving me a license plate, therefore I need to go call some sort of tool that's going to identify this guy and bring me back the details. And guess what? Found Garrett.
You've upgraded it.
Right? It's cool, right? Yeah. Garrett with a Maserati. All right, and yes, okay, that's good. So found your vehicle. Now, can you tell me where you actually are? Let's say we are. What's the address here again? 12 Creek Street, right? Who then, once again, as per that diagram there, it's going to go to Google and go, yeah, okay, now I know the credentials. I know exactly where Gareth is. And then the next thing is to go, okay, Gareth, now tell me what's happening with the vehicle so I can decide who is the more suitable roadside worker to send you and provide you the help that you need. So I would go, select battery, whatever. And need a jump start, perhaps.
I told you my flat battery story in confidence.
What's that, sorry?
Told you my flat battery story in confidence.
Oh, okay. Nice one. All right. Cool. Then again, given the context, etc., what it would do would go, well, okay, it's just a flat battery. Once again, I don't need to send a full tow truck. I can actually send a smaller vehicle, and then I'll try to find whoever is closest. And in this case, yeah, you guys gonna see some of the names in there. I'm really a rock and roll and heavy metal type of person. So all of the roadside workers, etc., they're all names like that: AC/DC, Black Sabbath, etc. So then it goes, okay, great, yeah, I actually found this guy there. The estimated time of arrival, or it's quite long, probably because this guy was very, very distant, but it's going to take roughly 41 minutes. Once again, not anything between 30 and 2 hours, whatever. Right, and that concludes this part. Now, once again, back to the AI-led stuff, and just for completeness of the actual demo, the part that I said you guys would probably laugh is, imagine like this. Now I'm the actual roadside assistant. I'm there operating my this one. All right, again. So let's suppose this is the actual mobile app that this guy is actually operating, right? Then I believe it was Singles Young. So imagine there was all of a login process, etc. This guy is actually operating his app, and it keeps waiting for a job, and then cool, okay, yeah, there's something I'm actually dispatching you to go there and help the person, and then it shows all of the details. Yeah, you have to go there and support Gareth. That's the address where he is, etc. That's what's happening with the car. And then again, just to demonstrate some of that capability, suppose, yeah, this guy is en route, and then fast forwarding 32 minutes. Gareth, do you want to make the truck sound or something? Okay, we are right. Cool, great. Okay, so yeah, I'll get the job started. Again, not much action in here, but the guy would go there and do the jump starting, do that. Cool, okay, sorted, complete the job, ready for the next one. Similar thing would happen to the other guys. And again, as the truck or the car is actually moving, it keeps sending stuff back to go, oh, that's my current position, etc. So we know exactly where this guy is and what's the truck or the car that he's driving, etc. Now I'm just conscious of the time, but so what I'll do is very quickly show you guys on. So as you can see in Salesforce, I'll just do very briefly here in Salesforce to show. As you guys can see, I have been playing with it for quite some time. The way that I implemented in Salesforce is all of these incidents that get reported, they get created as cases in Salesforce. Again, very simple, just for demonstration purpose. So those become cases. The actual people like Gareth is just one of the accounts, right? And I have used the structure of assets in Salesforce as the actual vehicles, just with a few custom fields here and there. And for the roadside workers, I used services. Again, standard object in Salesforce. I just customized by creating a field or two, just to demonstrate the capabilities in here. Then, yeah, the sort of the back office could go here and operate and see what's actually happening. So yeah, there's a number of them in here. So just wanted to very briefly pass on to this thing. And before I forget, if you guys remember, I mentioned that in the end of the process, when the assistance is actually complete, the system would send an email to go, yeah, can you actually rate us and tell us how your experience was? If everything went fine and I come to my Gmail, I would have received, yeah, cool, an email to open up and provide and say, yeah, so how did we actually go? Right, and then with all of the details, etc. Again, just to highlight this idea of AI-led connectivity, and probably once more to again using the same word to highlight the idea of the APIs are still there, they are still very much used. They are what gives the foundations for the agent in MCP as well. Now to the part that some of you guys might want to see, so I'll quickly switch to Endpoint Studio to show some of these apps. Again, I'm conscious of the time. And guys, before that, any questions at all?
Yeah, I thought just going back to the servers and like again with that marketplace scenario. So like you'll have your your ChatGPT or your Claude or anything that'll have their connectors. They've got their own wrapper for it. They've built it in so you can connect to SharePoint or Teams or whatever. But then you go to these marketplaces and like I've only looked at it very briefly, but it seems like a Wild West where there might be 12 different Salesforce connectors out there. Is there like any like official signing protocol from certain providers as that they might not push out their own connector and add it into ChatGPT and Claude and whatever else, but is there like an official signing to like, yes, we certify this is okay and you should use this one?
I have to confess, I haven't seen that yet. Also because they don't. There's something called what's the name? It's MCP. If I'm not wrong, a website MCP Server Hub. If I'm not wrong, which is exactly an attempt of creating something like that. Yeah. So you could probably go and see, just like when you use, I don't know, say Visual Studio Code, you use the plugins, etc. You see, yeah, this is certified. This is actually created by Salesforce, for instance. Yeah. You could have some of those. Is it really true? Don't know. Yeah. Don't know. And also configuring. What's that?
It's still too early.
It's still very early days. Yeah. I believe that's eventually gonna come. That eventually is gonna come. And the other thing is like they cannot really control, because you on your client, you have to configure to go, well, now I'm actually pointing to that server there.
Yeah.
Right. Which is exactly what I did in Claude in here. I didn't quite show that because it's just configuration, but the way that these operate is based on standard IO, right? Yeah. So I had to create an actual Node.js application to allow my MuleSoft application, my MCP server, the way that it stands in here, and Claude to actually talk over HTTP. So there's again, not quite relevant to this, but just so that so there's that part of configuration that I had to do, just like any other client would have to do, right? You would have to point out, oh, that's my server. If there are security aspects to it, That's the credentials that I'm gonna use, etc. All of that is
Yeah,
on you. Yeah,
thanks.
cool, all good. Then again, so just back to some of the concepts around MCP server, really, and how I implemented this. As you guys can see in here, all of these different flows represent one of the different tools that my client managed to call to provide the roadside assistance there. And one interesting thing that maybe some of you may have noticed is all of them have been implemented as tools, when in some of the cases, semantically and ideally, those would have been resources actually. So think of from that perspective, resources for read only and tools when you actually have actions. In my case in here, the only action that I actually had was to go, well, now you dispatch someone. Now, querying who's closest, query the client's details, etc. All of that could be resources. But then once again, MCP is very, very new. Not all of the clients support all of the different features or implement all of them in their clients. Claude, for instance, doesn't support at the moment, right? Doesn't support dynamic resources. So I could go, yeah, imagine it's very similar to an API, right? I could go get clients/client ID, passing the client ID dynamically. That's not yet supported by Claude as the MCP client.
So if you're building an MCP server in Studio, and like I'm probably massively oversimplifying here, but you might have a flow per tool or resource, and then Studio, when it compiles it, it just translates that into the tooling list.
Correct. Correct. All of that's encapsulated by the actual connector, and all of this complexity is taken away from you in a way that you literally go exactly like this. Just drag and drop an MCP listener, a tool listener.
That natural language just picks up.
Oh yeah, that's the part. Yeah, that's right. Good point, Rich. Good point. That's the part that I wanted to go.
I see.
So in here, yeah, that's right. So this is where I tell, and that's what the LLM is gonna go, well, is that tool suitable to exactly to do what I actually need? So in each one of them, I actually described exactly each. And once again, the usual stuff that everybody knows, like the more details, the better, so it can make better decisions, especially because, some of the models are not as smart, I suppose, as the others. So what I did was exactly that. So in every tool, the two main properties there are the actual description, again, so that it knows what to call, when, and then to go, yeah, okay, now in terms of what data do you actually need me to pass to you? Well, so you also describe in here. So you have to define that schema.
That might be further down the flow or anything.
You have to define in here. Yes. That's probably when I spoke to this person that went like, oh, let's create MCPs for everything. That's exactly when he saw that very parameter schema. Cool. So yeah, we already have the API specs, etc. We can just go create MCPs for everything. No, no, all of the Ys, etc. are still valid. So yeah, so again, tools, if those were exposed as resources, would be something very, very similar. The only difference, of course, is the connector that I would use in here. So for those, given for the demo, of course, given the I would say lack of capability on the client, I ended up creating as tools, but semantically, that one, for instance, of just getting details via vehicle license plate, ideally it would have been a resource. So meaning in Mule, the server supports all of the different features, right? You can have resources, you can have prompts, you can have everything. But the clients, well, not all of them. And also, it's not all of the LLMs that actually support tools. There are some, especially the old ones, they are not quite there. And then, other than that, guys, it's very, very standard Mule implementation. Again, just making calls to actual APIs. Maximum that's happening is, well, I'm actually doing some transformation depending on the results that I receive. I could be doing some filtering, could be changing, etc., discarding data, whatever it would be. But implementation-wise, it's all very standard. Mule, and then in here, as you guys can see, it's just standard HTTP requests to all of the underlying APIs. So then I have there my, say, the mailing list, which again, just a few seconds on this, very standard. Just have the listener. You have your API kit router that distributes to whatever flow that I have.
I just got one question.
Yeah, there you go.
So if I have a use case of signing up a customer, for example, like I got a brand website, I want a customer to sign up. So if I use the agency here, the customer have a lot of information to share to create customer according to CR.
Yep, right.
So I see there is a schema here that has to be described in the tool.
Yeah.
So do we need to create a complex schema to make the customer sign-up process? Like, how does that, is it like a simple process to create schemas there?
You mean to create one specific schema to your MCP server?
Yeah, for a customer to sign up. It's not just the first name and last
Because meaning you don't want to simply expose, say, the, I don't know, the Salesforce scheme or the scheme of your actual API. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, what I would use, there's nothing out of the box, definitely not. But what I have done before and even used to implement this thing is literally using Claude itself to go, well, that's my API spec. Can you create the similar, but this time, for me to support MCP server? It automatically does.
Or I can use the existing specification.
Yes, you could, but you could. But again, it really depends if that schema, because I mean, if that schema is initially suitable, then why would you create a different one?
Yeah,
that's the only thing. But assuming you have to, then yeah.
So you actually use the existing schema, which was used in the RAM specification, and then create it for it.
Yes, you could reuse it. It's not the same, but you could. Yes. Also because this is JSON, right? It's not RAML, but yes, you could. And it's exactly what I did. All of those APIs I actually created as RAML, and then I just went, okay, now you convert from this RAML, just create JSON for me. Simple and easy. Yeah.
Thank you. And a question on security level. Do you use any security on your
on this demo? No, I didn't. Lots of the aspects I decided to take out, just to focus again on demonstrating the capabilities around tools, resources, and prompts, etc. It's obviously all supported. It's all in place. I just didn't opt to use it for sake of simplicity, essentially. I see even the implementation, as you see, I haven't created specific properties, etc. Didn't separate the flows or different config files. It's all in a single thing, just to highlight the concepts and demonstrate. Very, very simplistic. But security is definitely in place. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. I guess someone else had that.
We did have a question online about security, actually, as to how you authenticated between Claude and Mule. Yeah? Like, how are you able to make that connection?
Would you like to answer that one there, Rich? Because that's part of the protocol.
Yeah. So usually when the client establishes a connection with the server, then we take all the security authentication flows, right? So the session won't even start if you don't authenticate, right? So that is part of the, and for that, MCP uses OAuth, right? The OAuth protocol. And there's also, you can also add policies to your MCP server, because the MCP server is nothing but a MuleSoft application. And you can also use it in API Manager and add some policies on it if you like. Those are some options for security. But the important thing is that the authentication happens once the session starts. That's the main thing about MCP.
So from security level, like let's have got one API already existing, so which have the overall coverage, right? So I'm gonna expose a MCP server for that application, for example. So do I need to add any specific OAuth authentication for the MCP server, or the existing authentication is still sufficient?
You still have to use the authentication from the server to the API. Right? So there are two parts: the authentication from client to server, and from the server to the API.
So does that pass through if you authenticated from the client to the server, and then you have your MCP server that goes off to API to fetch data? Is that passing that through and then maintaining using the client's credentials going all the way through?
Yeah, the server cannot bypass the security of the API.
Yeah.
It needs the credential.
Yeah.
So if you're accessing an API, you need, just like another API, you would need the API key, the credentials, and the token if there is a vault, just like any other client. The MCP cannot bypass that.
Yeah.
So where do you configure that client credential? And for example, or so to say that from MCP to API, so we have to enable the MCP server to have the right credential to access API.
Yeah. Yes.
So where do you configure the credentials? Look, I see this is MCP server as overall. So do we configure here in the application part, or should we do it in the API manager?
If it's between the MCP server and the API, then you would have your API gateway, if you like, your API manager in front of each. That's where you configure. Then, therefore, to call that API, you would have to have credentials for the MCP server to call that API. So essentially, you have two gates, if you like, of security, right? One is in between the MCP client and the server, right? And the other one is between the MCP server and the actual API.
Where do you configure the credentials for the MCP server to access the API?
Yeah.
Do you do it in configuration properties, or would you do it like on an MCP UI?
Yeah, that's my question. Yes.
So it's again from the MCP server to the API. Yeah, it would be exactly the same in here. Or in my case here, I don't actually have it, but in this case, remember, between the MCP server and the actual API is literally an API, just another HTTP call, right? So you would do the security exactly the same as you would, depending on what it would be, right? But let's suppose, I don't know, let's suppose it was basic authentication, right? I would go out, you guys know that, and then would go, I don't know, or if I have a token, I would go bearer, blah, 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 and then whatever the token is. So it's exactly the same. Yes, yes, that's exactly right.
It's a call to the API.
It's pretty much a call to an API. It's very that's why I said the layering here, or what MuleSoft adds now, is just the support for MCP, again, async resources, tools, etc. All of the other stuff are exactly the same. Nothing changes. So it's kind of like, well, you would think of it as almost as, oh, I'm just creating another API and just consuming another API.
Yeah, and it's only really the listener that changes, or the start of your flow that changes.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't configure any of that stuff in here unless you're the actual client. If you're the client, then yes, you would have configuration in here. Otherwise, on the server side, obviously you would use API manager if it's an API.
Yeah.
Or there's there's all of the package around governance that MuleSoft introduced, I think 3 weeks back, probably, that you would do some of that stuff as well. Yeah. Cool. Great.
A bit of a selfish question.
Cool.
So A84 have said previously, like they're an MCP client, so you can connect that to other MCP servers. I did see that Salesforce announced a partnership with OpenAI recently. Does that potentially entail a Salesforce MCP server? Or you don't know, or can't say?
Yeah, it's actually in pilot.
Oh, okay.
Some people are testing.
Yeah.
So right now, the Salesforce supports the Salesforce can work as an MCP client through Agentforce, but they are also going to release the support for MCP server. So Salesforce will be a Salesforce MCP server.
Yeah. Cool. And like, I know, safe harbor as always, but is that something that's in the near future, distant future?
Yeah, I think it's near future because they are in pilot. And some people are already testing.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Good to know.
Yeah. I mean, Salesforce is rapidly riding the wave, right, on all of those things, AI, agentic AI, etc. Which was even some of these features in Mule was actually a very, very pleasant surprise because you might have seen recently the guys dropped on the Gartner chart and all. Seriously.
Yeah.
And probably very shortly it's going to go up there.
Yeah, and it's much easier to expose your APIs using MCP than using just plain Agentforce.
Yeah.
Right? Because with Agentforce, you need to add all your APIs in the API catalog and then link each API to the topics and actions and all that thing. So with MCP, you don't need that. You just connect to an MCP server, and it will use whatever tools.
Yeah.
So it makes Agentforce easier.
Yeah. And the good thing of taking an approach similar to this is that you have access to all of the ecosystem of MuleSoft, right? In this case, it was very simple, just HTTP connectors. But imagine if to take some of the actions, you would have to talk to the usual SAP. That always causes problem, right? It's always difficult. So, for example, so you still have it. You can leverage the connectors, etc. Some of your existing APIs, etc. And the best thing as well is like, oh, if you're already a MuleSoft client, if you're already using it, then well, capabilities are in there. You don't need to. Why not? Pretty much. Yeah.
One more dumb question. So when I was very new to MCP and started
we all are,
last month or so, my initial impression was that MCP was because I read somewhere it was an API for agents. So my impression initially was like that's for like your Einstein agent communicating with a ChatGPT agent. Is that just like misinterpreted entirely, which I think I might have, but is that something that's possible with MCP, or is that something that
there's we have another slide, right? The HOA slide. Is it there? PowerPoint?
Yeah. We can.
We're going to actually talk about that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not in the.
It's probably not mine.
Is it
sorry, I have the old one.
Do you have it in the? I think it was in the beginning of it. Then we move it. We move to the end.
That's right. That's right. One second.
Oh, this one. Yeah, this one. So this is actually just talking about agent to agent, but this would be like another meetup to talk about this because it's a whole different thing. But basically, the MCP layer or the MCP server enables agent to system interaction, right? But MuleSoft and Salesforce now they have a support for another protocol called agent to agent, right? So if you have an Agentforce talking to OpenAI or to some other kind of AI, then we would use this one, agent to agent interaction. This is a different protocol.
Yeah.
And the MCP kind of make these things easier. It facilitates because with this we can easily compose different backend agents more easily, and then we can have multiple agents, and then you can have this agent to agent collaboration.
In that diagram there, as you guys have seen, all of the intelligence dispatching an actual roadside agent was in providing an API. Then when José and I spoke about this, and we were like, well, probably HOA is a nice one for us to talk on a future meetup.
Yeah.
And I was like, we could even actually use or build up on that same idea, but this time I was like, well, what if the intelligence is not here? All that this guy does is like, well, I don't have to query anything myself to find out if someone is closer or not, or just hand that over to another agent via HOA to go, oh, you go there, you find someone, and you could expand on that.
That's when the singularity really gets going.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. That's exactly what.
Yes.
Yes. And once again, reinforcing more of the same, but that's why that aspect around governance is so important, or even more now. Yeah.
A good question. So, say Salesforce has released their MCP server. You get the same from SAP at some point. You get the same from NetSuite, the same from Stripe. So you've got these, each system has its own MCP, and I can see the value of Mule around, say, a legacy database that will never have its MCP server or some internal systems or subsystems. How would you see? So how do those MCP servers that are all sort of discrete talk to each other and collaborate? Is there a layer required?
Between MCP.
So you've got SAP's MCP server, you've got Salesforce MCP server, you've got Claude at the front end that you've built your demo. In Claude, do you have to basically tell it every single MCP server so it knows what it's got access to?
Yes.
So if you've got a multi-client and a multi-server system, every client would need to know about every backend.
But if you've got that A to A layer, where your agent doesn't know, but that agent does. So if you've got the A to A layer, then we can
A to A is a point-to-point protocol.
Yeah,
it's flight rest for agents, right? So for a source agent to know there's something out there, it needs to know what's the address, so which API endpoint am I calling?
Yes.
So if I think about the sort of MuleSoft API economy, there's a registry of all the agents. So is that something that then plays into your front end?
Yes, which is exactly the new feature that was released again a few weeks back, actually. So you can visualize, you can monitor, and manage all of that. And ideas to do all of that in a single panel.
And you would usually have like a top agent that's running the whole process, right? So the agent, this top agent will actually get the goal, and it will break it into tasks. And the backend agents are like specialists about something. This can be like the inventory agent, this can be the order agent, and so the top agent is breaking down the problem into smaller problems, and for each one of these problems, it might use different agents. But the top agent is kind of keeping track of everything. He's orchestrating everything.
It's got the catalog of what agents do what and who to redirect to for.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Did have one question online where they asked, particularly for MCP development, is Anypoint Studio still the preferred IDE to do that, or should people be using Anypoint Code Builder instead? Like, is there advantages to use Anypoint Code Builder, particularly for MCP?
I would say yes, because the Endpoint Code Builder has more AI enabled, right? So what Eduardo was showing about creating the schema, for example, maybe you can do it within the IDE itself. Okay, create this tool listener for me using this RAML. Based on this RAML, create schema and a description, and then any Endpoint Code Builder can probably do it faster than if you use an external tool for that. But I think that's pretty much it.
I guess I can complement, just say a few words around this thing. I guess the main difference between Anypoint at that stage, the main difference between Anypoint Studio and Code Builder is really the AI capabilities. In Studio, there's none except for you can develop code, but nothing stops you from, for example, using something like Claude or Cursor or whatever to actually create your code. You copy and paste, to Code Builder or whatever. Then again, the advantage of Code Builder in this particular case is like, it's single UI, it's got greater support for AI. But again, I think the adoption is not quite there yet because there's a number of challenges. I personally face some of them, especially in environments where the networking and security is very, very restricted. Then in most of the cases, I basically went like, drop it, I'll go back to Studio. But overall, it's more of a preference thing. I don't think that people are still, are not yet in love with code builder. And another thing as well that probably everybody here knows is like most of the MuleSoft guys are actually Java developers, that were used to using Eclipse in the past, perhaps IntelliJ, whatever, to do their Spring Boot apps. Now they're doing Mule, so it just feels more natural, right? It just feels like home. My case, for instance, was exactly like that. When I saw Code Builder the first time, I was just, no, still in Point Studio, open it, feels like home. Okay, great, yes.
Yeah.
But again, Java guy here, still, so
I think the only thing I might add to that as well is that Anypoint Studio has been a lot more stable versus Anypoint Code Builder. And within the context of just MCP or Model Context Protocol, you're not gaining any advantage using Anypoint Code Builder versus Anypoint Studio because they're both using the same underlying connector. So there's not a connector built for Anypoint Studio and one built for Anypoint Code Builder. You're having the same experience. The only differences, as José presented, is one has AI in it, which is Anypoint Code Builder. If you like that, and if you feel a little bit more hip and updated, you can use Anypoint Code Builder. And if you're old school, like I am, and Eduardo is, you feel
Me too.
yeah, for enterprise development, would definitely suggest Anypoint Studio. But again, it's up to the preference of your client or yourself, and what security they have in place for that. So yeah, that's right. You can explore it, but there's no inherent advantage in this context.
Awesome. Anyone else? No? Okay, we can probably wrap up and have some food and some drinks.